Hello, everyone, and welcome to the penultimate episode of Thunderstruck, our look back at the career and significant matches, the greatest matches, if you will, of one Jushin Thunder Liger. My name's W.H. Park, and I'm the co-host of the oft-times, monthly Post-Perez podcast with John Pollock. And joining me today is someone who is also affiliated with John Pollock. He is the one of the masterminds behind the entirety of Post Wrestling. He is Wai Ting. Wai, how are you today?
I'm doing very well. Very happy to speak to one half of the very popular Post Perez Hispanic speaking Japanese wrestling radio show.
Oh, curse you, Brandon from New Jersey, for getting that off the ground.
Mr. Post Perez himself. I love it.
Well, I was talking to our mutual friend Robert Pearson.
Yes.
Last night actually, and maybe we'll try to get some kind of design for a T-shirt for Post Perez. But Brandon from New Jersey, you are not seeing a single Canadian red cent of the royalties from that T-shirt. Just so you know, right here off the bat.
Yeah. We'll make sure of that.
Definitely, it's going to be in the contract that we have for. I
think he should pay.
Works.
Actually, like he should.
Oh, he would buy it.
Yeah,
he would buy it for sure.
He should buy.
Brandon would definitely buy that. He'll buy like one for himself, and he'll buy like one for everyone in the secret chat group. So that would be like, Neil from Ireland and a bunch of other. Maybe he'll buy one for Scrump and several other people in that group. Maybe he'll even be so kind to buy one from NJ because like they are good friends. Despite what they each individually say to me, complaining about one or the other, I'm like just throwing everyone under the bus right now. This is just a joke.
I didn't realize.
I'm sure he would.
I didn't realize there was such a secret society of all you guys like just talking in your side chats and your Twitter DMs. Who knows what sort of vitriol goes on in that world?
Vitriol is usually, I don't know, just dumb stuff like that we see on Twitter. It's like this person tweeted this, and we're like, instead of like responding it and just adding fuel to the fire, we just make fun of these people on our own little chat group. So it could be wrestlers, could be other prominent wrestling podcasters or journalists, whatever, or it's just other Twitter users usually, or people we know.
How does one even join this secret society? Is it invite only?
It is invite only. I sometimes post names on the group and say, "How about this person?" and then they say, usually it's Brandon. He'll say, "Okay," or he'll say, "No."
So there's a vetting process. Like everybody has to agree.
Well,
who's not been able to make it in?
I can't say.
Oh, okay.
I can't say. It would literally cause problems, I think, if I said who's not allowed to join.
Now I really want to know.
You can join, but I don't think you'd enjoy it that much.
No, because then you can't talk shit about me.
No, we don't talk. No, listen, there's a lot of love for both yourself and for DJ Jopo on the secret chat group there.
Well, I'm very fascinated. One day I hope to be able to hack into this group just to see what you guys are talking about.
If you really want to join, Wai, you're more than welcome to come in. I just don't know if you'd enjoy it or not.
I'm good. I'm okay. I'll enjoy it from a distance.
But we're not here to talk about secret chat groups. We're here to talk about one legendary professional wrestler, Jushin Thunder Liger. And my question for you right off the bat, Wai, is like, what does Jushin Liger mean for you personally as a wrestling fan?
What does he mean to me? He means, well, I'll tell you like how I first found out about Liger. And, listening to the show, I think a lot of people either find out about him through, I guess, tape trading or through WCW, I would say. A lot of people seem to have found him that way. I found him through this little thing called SmackDown 2 Know Your Role for the PlayStation 1. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I've never played it, no.
It was basically my summer of 2001 was spent entirely on this stupid game. I was a PlayStation guy, so I didn't have No Mercy. I didn't have World Tour. I didn't have all those AKI games. I had Well, first I had WCW Thunder, which was just shit. Like the first THQ games were just terrible. But then they got it in bed with WWE, and then they got the Ukes engine, and that made vast improvements, and that turned into the SmackDown series, which I think is still somehow like. I mean, I don't know if the current system is like a sort of like affiliated, or at least Ukes was working with them all the way. Anyway, so Know Your Role was the second iteration of it, but I believe like the Creator Wrestler in the second one, you had like various different outfits that you could use to create your own guys, and they would throw in like leftover outfits, I suppose, from their like New Japan game or from their other Japanese games. So like you can go through this like Creator Wrestler and you can find Masawa's pants. You could find like, for instance, Gold Dust's whole like suit, even though he wasn't with the company anymore. And then you could find Jushin Liger's outfit. So like at the time I didn't know really who Liger was. Like probably 2000, 2001. I didn't really know who he was. But then I saw this like this outfit. I'm like, what is this really ugly looking outfit? Like these really disgusting pants, this like really weird kind of like centerpiece on the chest. It looks really strange. They even had the mask as well. So like I later came to realize that, oh, this guy is modeled after an actual wrestler. So this was all about at about the same time that I started to yes, were you gonna say something?
No, go ahead. I was gonna say, like, I will hear no slander about Jushin Thunder Liger's outfit.
Well, I mean, listen, this was my very uninitiated brain, right? Like, just, if you were to see one of these things like at like a Uniqlo or something, like, I don't think you would pick it up, WH, right? I'm talking about like if this was like a real shirt, what he's wearing.
Well, no, I wouldn't wear it myself, but I mean, it looks good on him. Like, there's a lot of people whose gear looks good on them. I would never wear it in real life.
That's the thing, okay? So I'm purely judging this just from a novice aesthetic standpoint. I'm like, what are these really ugly pants? So then, this was all about the same time that I started to discover Japanese wrestling. I started to download a lot of wrestling matches through this like FTP thing that I found. And I realized Jushin Liger was a name that I would commonly see. In fact, the Super J Cup, like for many people, was one of the first things that is recommended when you're getting into Japanese wrestling. And he was obviously, a guy who was plastered all over that show, all that J Cup, the 95 J Cup, started getting to a whole bunch of his other matches, discovered that this guy, was a creator of a lot of my favorite wrestling moves, including the shooting star press, and then I just became a big Liger fan from that point on. So I made Liger in the game, like played with his moveset in the game is amazing. Like he does he's the only guy that you can choose who can do the shooting star press as a regular move. Like he, normally if you want to use the shooting star press, you can only select it as a finisher. They don't let you go like down X when you're on the top turnbuckle to do a shooting star press. If you want to do that though, you have to choose Jushin Liger's custom moveset. So, a very young Wai Ting knew from that point on, wow, this guy must be really good. And he was. I fell in love with his matches, the theme song, oh my God. So that kind of became, started my minor obsession with him as sort of like one of my leading figures, with my new like fandom of Japanese professional wrestling. I ended up having like the pleasure of seeing him live many times in my life. The first time actually at St. John's Hall, Mississauga. I don't know if you were at that show, the UWA show. Who's
like wrestling? Who's he wrestling against? Was he in a tag match?
I think it was a tag match. It was probably something involving Ultimo and possibly a very young Kazuchika Okada.
I want to say like he was teaming maybe against the Machine Guns at the time.
Could have been something like that. It's a very.
I was probably at that show. I've seen pretty much I think everything he ever did at St. John's Hall for the UWA Hardcore promotion. So we were probably at that show together. Maybe that was one of the first times we met. I think I met you at a Grady's the first time though.
Yeah, I would probably say so. Yeah, well, maybe I just saw you there again. Yeah, those were sort of like the big hangouts, I think, for a lot of the people. Certainly for those shows, getting Jushin Liger into this like local indie show was, I think, a big deal to all wrestling fans in Toronto. So yeah, that's a bit about my own personal history. So he He exists as a guy who's really good in the video game. That's what he means to me.
And then, you and I, along with John, had the pleasure of like seeing his last two matches at the Tokyo Dome for both days of Wrestle Kingdom. And then, of course, the real main event of that weekend was the retirement ceremony of Jushin Liger at Oda City Ward Gymnasium. And as a fan, like I'm going to save my feelings about that because those 3 days are going to be discussed with John on next week's episode. But how did you feel being able to say to yourself and maybe to like wrestling fans and your other friends who like wrestling that, hey, I was there for literally the end of Jushin Thunder Liger's in-ring career?
I felt incredibly privileged to be there for the entire weekend, but specifically for that, and to be able to get a ticket to that particular show that was a very coveted ticket. So thank you very much to our friend Fraser for managing to help us snag some tickets to that event. So yeah, I just felt incredibly privileged because I know how much Liger means to everybody around the world, and to be one of the select few to be able to go into that building to see that the final moments of his actual in-ring career, and to enjoy that live sing-along to his theme song. That was certainly one of the highlights of my entire trip.
Yeah, definitely. Along with all the food you ate, I was like jealously following your Instagram and other social media way, like when we had separated our trips. You and your now fiance had gone off to Kyoto and such, and I was still in Tokyo with John and Martin Bushby and his wife Lisa, and it was fun still. But we were definitely missing the two of you on our trips. Especially, I was like, oh my god, all that food looks amazing. He's eating better food than I do, and I live here.
If you ever go to Hakone, you got to go to this place called Hakone Cheese. They've got this like cheese ice cream that is amazing.
All right, I have been to Hakone. I don't think I've ever been to Hakone Cheese, so I will make that on the bucket list for myself in the near future. I do plan on going to Hakone, soon, just for going to shrines and things like that, because I collect these stamps that you can get at different Shinto shrines and Buddhist temples throughout Japan. But let's get back on track. Let's talk about today's episode. And Wai, who are we going to talk about along with Jushin Liger? Who is Jushin Liger facing in the match that you personally chose?
We will be talking about one Samoan submission machine, Samoa Joe. You might also know him as the guy who helps lead around Okado. The guy who had his girlfriend kidnapped by some dude in TNA, the guy who paints his face. But
you know how I know him as? I know him as the guy who reffed a grappling match between you and Court Bauer.
That happened as well, yeah. Sometimes I forget about that. But yeah, no, Samoa Joe is one of my favorite wrestlers. Not because of any association I might have with him in my grappling career, but just simply because I think he is really one of the best. And I wanted to talk about this particular match because it took me back to a time where I think I was like most obsessed with Samoa Joe's career. And also, for me personally, I think this was like a very unique time as well, because TNA was just starting, and me being a part of the Fight Network at the time, we were just launching, and we kind of had a bit of a connection to the start of this show. And I guess maybe I can get into a bit of that right now, where this match took place at Bound for Glory 2005, and 2 days before that show was the Fight Network's official launch party. This was, the famed big giant party in the Cool House. You've probably been to the Cool House many times, right? WH.
I think I've been there maybe once or twice.
You know how big of a venue it is, right? Like they hold like pretty big concerts in there.
Yeah.
So this little Category 2 Canadian television station decided to rent out this whole thing to have this giant launch party, just to celebrate its existence. And so there was like a Muay Thai demonstration. There was this local boxer, Steve Molitor, had an actual pro boxing match. There was no MMA in Ontario at the time, but you did have celebrities like Chuck Liddell, Gary Goodrich, Carlos Newton, Frank Trigg. All these guys were there. But the main event to somebody like me, and to I think a lot of people that were there, was a set of matches from TNA Wrestling. Fight Network, we didn't air Impact, but we picked up, I think, their secondary show, Explosion, which, at the time was a big deal for us. So we had an association as a Canadian broadcaster for Impact. And as part of it, we welcomed them to this launch party in order to wrestle some matches. And among the crop were Jeff Jarrett, Rhino, Sabu, and Samoa Joe. And this was, again, 2 days before Bound for Glory. And so it was actually my job as a very young 21-year-old intern at the Fight Network to wrangle talent and show them around the building. So I had the pleasure of welcoming a very disheveled Jeff Jarrett, coming back from probably a very long travel day. And he looked a little anxious to me and just stressed out about something. And all he really wanted to know was like where he was supposed to be. On the other hand, Samoa Joe, very calm, like just, like he was just chilling. And I was a big fan of his at the time because, like, not only did we air TNA, we also aired Ring of Honor. And I was responsible for, like, segmenting commercial breaks into a lot of those tapes. So I've seen pretty much his entire run as champion. So I was really excited to not just meet him, but, like, I was excited to, for this match against Liger that was just announced. And so, I didn't have much of a chance to talk to any of them. But I was like, I asked Joe if he was excited for this Liger match coming up. And Joe was just like, yeah, it should be great. So it was a terrible conversation, but it was only notable because he then proceeded to whistle the Jushin Liger theme. And it was like a weird, stupid moment that I somehow still remember.
I kind of wish you were filming this and had this for posterity.
Oh, that would have made things even more awkward. So, that's sort of like my personal connection with the match. I mean, my expectations were certainly very high for it. You have to remember that, this was a time when Joe, I would say, was one of the hottest things in professional wrestling right now. Certainly if we're talking non-WWE, he had that monumental run with the ROH title. He seemed like he was finally set to make the jump to the national stage with TNA. And then as well, like he was just coming off of that classic with Kobashi just 3 weeks before this. So that coupled with, I think, all the buzz coming off of like TNA getting the deal with Spike, that show debuting just like three weeks prior, kind of like created this great deal of anticipation for that show. But in particular for me, and I think a lot of people, this particular match.
Yeah, definitely myself, I was really hyped when this match was announced back in 2005. I was like, whoa. So I like yourself, I was a big Samoa Joe fan. And of course, I'd been a fan of Liger for years and years. And I just thought, wow, this should be good because like if there's one, big man in wrestling at that time who was really well known for working with opponents who were faster and smaller than him and who he could keep pace with, it was Samoa Joe. Like you look at his matches with Loki, with Bryan Danielson, with AJ Styles, Amazing Red, and a host of other people. You got to think the formula is there. The skill set in Joe is there to have an amazing match with one of the legends in Jushin Liger. Let's go to the match itself. So as you said, Wade, this is from 2005's edition of TNA Bound for Glory, emanating from Universal Studios on October 23rd, 2005. And this is the opening match for that particular pay-per-view. And they start off really, hot in my opinion, because Joe comes out with members of his Polynesian family dance troupe, and they perform a traditional, I guess, Samoan dance or Polynesian dance. I'm not exactly sure which one it is, but I thought this was just an amazing way, not only to start the match itself, but the show in general.
Absolutely. Any sort of like, unique entrance automatically makes you pay attention, especially when it comes to pro wrestling, because I think they happen somewhat rarely, only reserved for your tentpole events like a WrestleMania, or I guess in this case, a Bound for Glory. But this was, it totally got me in the mood and signified to me that this was going to be a special match, gave it a big fight feel. And as you mentioned, this was, I believe, Joe's family's business, the TRA Warriors. So Joe, I believe, used to perform with them when he was young, so he was here busted a move.
Yeah, I'm sure it was like just 30 minutes of rehearsal, and he was like, "Oh, I remember all this stuff. Let's go out. Let's go do it." As you were saying before, he's kind of on a hot streak right now, so he's still undefeated, at least in TNA at this point. So he's just coming into this match with a ton of momentum. Liger is out next, and they're playing his theme, Ikari no Jushin. And I made a note, Wei, that at least TNA, for all their faults, at least TNA used his fucking theme song, unlike the multi-billion-dollar wrestling company WCW.
Well, you know what? It makes me wonder about that because I would say the reason why Liger is even on this show, I would have to assume it would be because by this point he had really grown in stature as sort of a bit of a legend, even without having made any recent appearances in North American television, at least if you don't count Ring of Honor. And in that time, probably with the internet, probably with that much more kind of like time on his actual career, like this song is as big of a part of his whole like aura as the costume, as the moves, like especially towards the end of his career. I would say like this song is like half of the appeal to me.
Well, I'm just saying, why didn't they ever use it in WCW? Because they had the relationship with New Japan, and they just put the same music on his entrance in WCW that they put on like Ultimo Dragon, on pretty much anyone else except for members of NWO Japan. Like everyone else had the same generic, quote unquote Oriental music to come out to with Sonny Ono.
Could it be because at the time they did not recognize, or at least North American audiences did not really recognize that song as that big of a deal? And even if like North American audiences did, certainly the producers of WCW, outside of maybe a select few, I don't know if they would have. Whereas I feel like whoever was putting this match together, or at least suggested this match together, I think recognized that this song had become as, just a vital part of the whole package.
Well, at the very least, I'm really happy that TNA decided to use his theme, and I thought it really added to his entrance here. Mm-hmm. Doing the ring announcing is one Jeremy Borash, and I have to say, I made a note that it sounds like he's announcing Liger as Jason Thunder Liger. Maybe that was going to be his new American gimmick. He's going to be called Jason.
Jason Liger.
And he'd wear like, instead of like the full body costume, he'd wear like, a sweater, a collared shirt underneath, and some khakis and some
hockey mask.
No. Jason.
Jason,
I just had this image.
Hockey mask.
Nah, not that Jason. I was just thinking of like some suburban dad. That he's Jason Liger. He's the guy next door. That would like that would be something like definitely Russo would do. Maybe he's like, I got to make it up to Liger for what I did with him and Hoovy in that IWGP Junior Heavyweight title match with the tequila on the pole shit. And I know I'll make him a suburban dad. That'll be funny. Anyways, thank God they didn't do that. But I'm just saying, it sounded like Borash was saying Jason. I just think probably it's the nature of his voice. But the fans really respond to Liger in his entrance. They give him a big response. They throw the streamers in for him. The very crappy like North American style streamers that you can buy at any party store, I think. And instead of the well balanced and very well prepared Japanese streamers that you see a lot of fans do at Japanese shows.
I didn't realize there was a difference between North American and Japanese streamers. They've really perfected the balance and the art of the stream. Is that it?
Well, they weight them at the tips, right? And then they roll them up very carefully, and then they bring them in special containers to keep them for like, okay, so this wrestler colors are like, for example, so let's say Kota Ibushi, you would throw white and blue and gold for him, right? So you would keep those colors separate and just for him in one container, and then like Liger would be red and white. You would keep his streamers for him. It really makes me laugh when I see like ROH shows from this time, or even now, like people throwing streamers for certain wrestlers, and it's like it doesn't match their colors. It's whatever you found. Like if you really want to emulate Japanese fans, people go research how to make proper streamers. But you remember we were at the Stardom show at Shinkiba on January. It was the 3rd.
Yeah.
And there was a fan in front of us. Yeah. And he is known like at Tokyo shows for throwing streamers for multiple wrestlers. And he just had them all prepared, like in special, like, rectangular cylinders for, okay, this wrestler has these colors and so forth and so on. And I got to see them and I was like, wow, okay, there's like kind of a small, I guess like it's a plastic weight. I don't think hopefully it's not metallic, but you got to be careful when you throw these things. And that's why you always see wrestlers kind of like duck when they're thrown in because they don't want to get hit in the head by the tip of the streamer.
I had no idea. There was such a science behind it. I feel like I could listen to a whole podcast just about Japanese streaming technology.
I should try to find someone who speaks good enough English and do a segment with them and put it on the next and on a future post Perez. What do you think, Wai?
What do you see? What is the history of streamers, and what is the future of streamers?
Holographic streamers?
I think streamers that are on fire. That'd be cool. Imagine just a big stream of fire going into the wrestler's ring.
Well, you might not want that in Korakuen Hall. Like, one particular wrestler almost burned down Korakuen Hall with like doing a fire match. So I don't think Korakuen Hall would allow that. They'd probably just ban streamers altogether. So we don't necessarily want to see that way. Holograms, safe, yeah. Harmless. Just maybe some radiation there, but like fire, not so much. But back to the match. Our announced team is Mike Tenay and Don West. And I thought they did a really good job throughout this whole show, especially, of course, Mike Tenay, who really knows his Japanese professional wrestling. You know,
you really couldn't ask for a better English play-by-play commentator at the time to call, a Jushin Liger match. I would certainly say he was the best. I think Morrow actually would have done a really good job too, but at the time he wasn't really known for his wrestling stuff yet. He was still with Pride doing a lot of that. And but yeah, Tenay, top notch. You know what? Like this team of Tenay and West, I think at the time I enjoyed them. Though I have to say sometimes they were a little too intense for my taste. Like intense without any variation. Like even for they're usually at like an 11, and even for a chin lock, they're still at an 11. But that said, like these days, I would certainly still take them over many other commentary teams.
Definitely. And we get a shot of one Simon Inoki in the crowd looking bored out of his mind, Joey.
Is this how he always looks?
I'm pretty sure he didn't look this way like when he's at a New Japan show. I'm sure he's just like, why am I here?
The show just started.
Why are we in bed with these people? They don't even know how to use Okada. Oh my God. I don't know if this is during the Okada time, but like I'm pretty sure he's not that familiar with most of the TNA talent, but he just looks bored. I'm sure he was like in meetings with Jeff Jarrett the whole day. So
just maybe sick of like this would have been Florida, right?
Universal Studios. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Was this, I guess, the beginning of that TNA New Japan relationship?
Can't exactly remember like what point it was in, but I think they had already been in bed for several months. I don't know like how long actually in 2005. We'd have to look that up, and
I'll ask John at some point.
Ask John on a future episode of Rewind a Raw or Rewind a SmackDown or Dynamite, whichever one you remember. Maybe like at the beginning of when we dropped this episode, the week we dropped this episode, you're gonna have to ask John like how long was TNA in bed with New Japan at that time?
Well, I'll just edit. I'll just cut it in and pretend I came up with it myself.
We can do that as well. The magic of modern day editing suites in audio, right? And your tremendous skills. I don't know if you've heard some of the the outtakes of other episodes that I've sent you way, but some of the guests thank you for your hard work, and it's deeply appreciated by myself as well.
Oh, it's no problem. I'm very happy to do it. I mean, you guys put in so much hard work in creating the content, so the least I could do is try to make it sound as good as possible. And I have to commend you, WH, for your great internet connection. And I would say you probably learned a whole lot about audio recording yourself throughout this entire process.
Yes, I thanks to your tutorship, mentorship.
Descriptions are always on point. The links always work.
Thank you.
It's a great system we got going on.
I'm doing my best here. Back to the ring. Let's actually start talking about the match itself. Oh, yeah. They start the match. They circle each other in the 6-sided ring. So TNA is using the 6-sided ring at this point, and they immediately lock up. Joe throws Liger off twice, demonstrating his superior strength. Liger tries for a couple of shoulder tackles to no avail due to Joe's superior size and strength. Liger tells Joe to hit the ropes, and then he catches Joe with a drop toe hold and drop kick to the head. So at this point, he's still smarter than Samoa Joe. Way.
Yes, where he can't match Joe for size, he can match him with experience and pure wit in the form of this drop toe hold that caught Samoa Joe completely off guard.
From here, Liger sends Joe to the outside. He psychs him out with faking a dive and then catches him with a drop kick through the ropes, which allows Liger to climb to the top turnbuckle, and he hits Joe with a crossbody block onto the floor. It was like, wow, this guy is like now in his late 30s, early 40s, and he's doing like these crazy moves off the top rope still.
Yeah, certainly. When did he stop doing that? Like, what? I guess, what? At what point did he like stop? Because I wouldn't even say this was that high risk at all. But like, when did you start to see his career slow down, at least in terms of like dives?
I really think he stopped doing a lot of this stuff with the rise of, like re-emergence of New Japan as a very prominent wrestling company in Japan, where they had Tanahashi, they had, Okada in the wings, and they had Nakamura, and I think Geto had joined the booking team. I think for him, he saw like, I don't need to do this anymore because you got all these younger guys who can do all this crazy stuff, and you don't really need me to do this anymore. So I'm going to say maybe a little after 2010 is when you really see him like just cut back, not only on his in-ring style, but like as on his schedule as well, where he's not really wrestling singles anymore. He's not trying to be in all the tournaments anymore. He's really cutting back and letting other people have the spotlight, which is a theme I think we'll talk about in this particular match that he has with Samoa Joe. Back to the match, Joe catches Liger coming off the top again into a fireman's carry and into a Samoan drop. Just a beautiful sequence of moves there. Joe catches Liger with a running knee to his face while he's in the corner, a signature move of Samoa Joe. Joe snapmares Liger, chop to the back, kick to the front, jumping knee to the chest of Liger, and it's got to suck to be Jushin Liger, even though Samoa Joe is a total pro here and probably doing his best not to hurt the legend. You still got to think that's a lot of weight coming down on you.
Oh, certainly, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't volunteer to take one of these.
Can you imagine being on the ground and seeing a massive man like Samoa Joe dropping a knee onto your chest? If you're like, oh no, what did I do wrong in my life?
It would be it'd be quite like the VR experience. Like you wear like a VR goggles and have Samoa Joe drop a knee on you.
I feel a VR wrestling video game is in the works where you're gonna experience like these POVs of like strikes and moves happening to you. I just think people are just gonna vomit playing this game, and it's probably not gonna be pretty, and they're gonna have a massive recall of this thing. If they do that though, I do want them to use the AKI engine from No Mercy and Virtual Pro Wrestling 2, because that is the greatest wrestling game.
Yeah, if we're talking like VR experiences with wrestlers, I think the last one I would ever want would be like a Will Ospreay VR experience. I think I would just puke. Like I'd want like maybe more of a Randy Orton VR experience, just kind of chill, chin
locks. Yeah. Stomps, chin lock, RKO, done. That I can't disagree with you as far as like not wanting to get motion sickness there. From there, Joe applies a rear chin lock, speaking of which, but Liger powers out. He hits the ropes, but Joe catches him in a beautiful power slam for the 1-2. Back to the chin lock again, and Joe continues his dominance until missing a second running knee, and Liger catches him with a capo kick, one of his signature moves. And I'm at the point in my fandom of Jushin Liger in 2005, and of course here in 2020, way that like when I see him just hit his signature moves, I just have a great sense of nostalgia and just have a big smile on my face, including the capo kick, including the shotes, including like the Romero special and things like that. How do you feel like when you saw him live, especially when he's in Toronto, like when you get to see these signature moves live, how did that make you feel? Because I can imagine it's a big pop for a lot of fans.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, by the time I started watching him and in the times that I've been able to see him live, I don't think he's ever done anything that like crazy fancy, nor do I really expect it. Like he's not pulling off a shooting star press. But like, I didn't cherish it any less because he didn't, because I think you get as much of a reaction doing a shote or doing a rolling capo kick. And, these are moves that for whatever reason still aren't as like overused and completely like, I would say, I don't know, watered down yet. Like nobody delivers a shote like Liger. Nobody does a capo kick like Liger. And so to see him do it and have it look as good as it still does, even like towards his last matches that we just saw, it's always a big reaction.
From here, Liger goes for a brainbuster. Joe blocks, thankfully for him. Liger stomps on him and hits Joe with a fisherman buster. Holy shit. Got him up for that.
I love that he couldn't hit the suplex, and so he stomps on Joe's foot in order to get Joe to lift up his foot so that he could hook him for the fisherman to get that extra leverage. It's a wonderful little detail.
Yeah, and that gets him a 2 count. Liger then hits a frog splash, a beautiful looking one for a 1-2 here. Liger misses a shote, and Joe hits him with an enziguri. Liger blocks a top rope move by Joe in the corner and hits him with a power slam for a 1 and a 2. So he's also showing like he's deceptively strong himself in this match way.
Yes, this was the power bomb or the power slam.
Oh, sorry, the power bomb. My writing is a little messy here. The power bomb. He hits him with a power bomb, even though he's already up there. But still, to get that man and to maintain the control on him, where you're not just like dropping him. And if it still looks good, is like very, very impressive. Yeah.
It's probably the only way he was able to powerbomb Samoa Joe.
From here, 3 shotes, and finally, like Joe goes down on the third one. Joe clotheslines Liger with he catches Liger with a kick to his leg as he's climbing the top rope. Joe puts him in the muscle buster and then into the coquina clutch and puts Liger to sleep in 7 minutes and 27 seconds. So he doesn't pin him. He puts him to sleep. So this is getting like Joe's finisher, the coquina clutch, over really strong, that he's able to get like Liger, a legend in professional wrestling, to go to sleep to this.
Yeah, passed out. Liger didn't tap. It was, I think a finish that really helped Samoa Joe. And, going back to what you were saying about perhaps Liger being selfless and using the time that he has in these feature matches to actually showcase the other person. This kind of felt like that.
I really thought so. This match went like 7 minutes and 27 seconds. I think it would have benefited. Like, I'm not necessarily for matches going longer, but I think it would have benefited from maybe, I don't know, another 3 to 5 minutes. I think you could have filled it out and had like, both guys look a little bit more dynamic in the match. It's still a fun match for what it is. But I do think it could have like just used just to put it over the top, just make it that more special. Another, like, maybe make it like 10 to 12 minutes long.
I think it could have gone 15, to be quite honest with you. I think the hype was already, like, the crowd's attention was that much for it. It was an enjoyable match while it lasted. Primarily, I would say, I think the work was really strong, but primarily because of the atmosphere. The Impact Zone, like, really reacted to this as if it was a dream match, which completely reflected, how I was watching it. But the match, all in all, I thought the match was very average, mainly due to its length and because I don't think they ever really got out of first gear. It felt like we had a really good first half of a match. And I think, especially if your expectations going into this were something perhaps close to the caliber of Joe versus Kobashi, I would say that you might have left this disappointed. If you're coming into this as a completely, relatively new fan of both Samoa Joe and Jushin Liger, I think this was like a really good X Division opening match. It just depends on, I think, what your expectations are. And I think I fall more so into the camp of the people who were disappointed that this was being treated as just an opener, when I think in my mind I almost built this up to like semi-main event level.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think it's kind of a missed opportunity for TNA to have like something in their library that was like, it could have been a far more significant match for both men, but it is what it is. Talking about the finish, like obviously Samoa Joe's like, he's the up and coming star in the business. He's going to be a top star for TNA. So like, I thought it was really smart that he went over. It would have made absolutely zero sense for Liger to win, since like this loss wouldn't really even be covered that heavily in the media in Japan. So I thought, I'm sure Liger was told, this is the finish. What do you think? He probably was like, yeah, he's Samoa Joe. He probably knows who he is. He's like, he's bigger than me. Look at him. He's so athletic. I have no problem putting this guy over. And it's another example of like how Liger goes out of his way really to like just not be political and just puts over younger wrestlers, especially if he sees some potential in them.
It even makes me wonder if like he would argue, like if somebody were to suggest something more substantial. Like even talking about his last matches that we just sat through at Wrestle Kingdom. I mean, those ended in a very similar, I would say almost kind of flat way, where you're expecting a bigger comeback towards the rush to the finish from Liger, and instead they just kind of end.
I mean, we don't know, like, why these matches were the way they were. I mean, logic dictates that he would have had more significant matches. Like his last match should have been, I feel, a singles match, but maybe he can't do one. Maybe there are nagging injuries that preclude him from, having a 15-minute match with Will Ospreay, where, like Ospreay would carry the brunt of like doing all the bumping in the match, obviously, but maybe he's just like, no, I don't want to do it. Who knows? Maybe he just didn't feel like it at this point in his career, in his life. But I mean, he was happy. Like, honestly, the best part of that Wrestle Kingdom weekend was seeing him in there with his family, with his son and his wife. And that just warmed my heart. I was just like, that's such a lovely scene. And it just, I think, encapsulates what a great human being he is.
He can go and be the suburban dad now.
That's true. He's doing the gimmick that Vince Russo may or may not have pitched to him in 2005, and he's doing it right now. I bought the commemorative Liger issue from Weekly Pro, and it's just great. It's just like him in his house. Like there's tons of shots of him in his house with his Godzilla collection. Wow. He's got a massive Godzilla toy collection and posters and all this stuff. He's got a collection of masks from every masked wrestler he's ever faced. I think probably from the matches that he had with them. And it's just like unbelievable, these pictures of like looking at his different collections of memorabilia in his house is just really amazing. It just seems like really just a positive family man. I know he does training at the dojo these days. Like we had lunch with Toa Hanare and Fraser, and he was talking a bit about that, about the dojo life, and like Liger's probably going to be there all the time now. Like he's always there anyways, and he takes care of the young boys. Like every generation of new young lions that comes through that dojo, he's taking care of them and teaching them how to cook nabe, and that's like going to be his continuing legacy in the sport of professional wrestling way. It's like helping guide and foster these new talents that come through. New Japan's excellent training system.
That's sort of like, I think the New Japan world that I want is like the camera into the dojo to see Jushin Liger teaching people how to cook.
And like scolding them when they put too much salt or something in there. That would be amazing.
Like, that's where I want my 9.99 yen to go.
Okay, so here's what we have. We have Liger and Nakanishi as the house mothers, and they're just like scolding these guys, and then like you didn't make that rice, like you made it too flaky, and then just body slam him and just abuse him in the ring as punishment. That would be amazing. Or
like just a Romero special for like an hour.
And he has to, and the guy has to balance like a hot like pot on a pad. Of course, you don't want to really hurt the guy, but it's like don't move, or you're gonna get scalded. That'd be amazing. I gotta pitch this. Brilliant. I gotta talk to Chris Charlton and say, hey, I got an idea to pitch for New Japan World. How about this? And I'll be the executive producer. And Wai, you can come over and you can hang out at the dojo, and then we'll go out eat with these guys. That would be amazing.
Oh, I take my money right away.
Exactly. Well, that brings us to the wrap of this. This is the penultimate episode, Wai. Like I got one more episode with John Pollock coming up next week, and then I'm wrapped up Thunderstruck, and I want to thank, while I have you here, I want to thank you and John for providing the platform for me to do the show about one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. And I thought so apropos in terms of like timing, because it is, we've seen like the end of his career throughout like the beginning of Thunderstruck, and then we ran through to now we're in the post season of his career. So I want to say, like, it's been great doing this, and I got to thank you and John for providing the platform.
Oh man, like we really, like, we do thank you, but we really should be thanking you, and I think all the listeners are really appreciative of like the amount of work that you put into this. Just not just, booking the guests themselves, but like recording the shows, making those descriptions, and just coming up with just this brilliant idea to celebrate this wrestler's life. I have no doubt you've enriched a lot of people's appreciation for Jushin Liger and probably made that run up to his retirement that much more of a meaningful experience for everybody. So thank you, WH, and I look forward to your next project.
Yeah, well, we'll announce that on the next episode publicly. I've been hinting at it throughout the series here, Wai, but we'll save the announcement for next week's episode. In the meantime, like, obviously this is being recorded ahead of time. But do you have any plugs? I'm not sure when the schedule is. I don't know if like you can plug the Q&A that you're gonna have in Tampa for WrestleMania weekend, but that looks like it's gonna be fun. I was talking to, like I said, Robert Pearson, and he was telling me a bit about the details you guys had for that. It sounds like a fun event. I wish I could go to this one. The Toronto one was a lot of fun for me to just be in the audience for. I thought it was really fun, and to get to meet all the listeners, that was one of the highlights for me. Well, but yeah, like, I don't know what else to plug. Listen to everything, everyone, at postwrestling.com. Read all the articles.
What number is this?
This is 20. Sorry. I'm trying to remember what number the last one was. I think it's like 25, maybe.
Okay. Because I think the Q&A was 2 weeks ago.
Okay. So, I hope everyone had an awesome time. But, definitely, Wai, you got to cut. You come back to Japan. We have to spend more time together.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Or when you come back to Toronto, like I want to like be in Japan every year if I could. So I guess the question is, will you be in Japan the next time I'm there?
Well, we'll see. I'm not leaving anytime soon, it seems. So we'll see. If you're here, you and Pauline are here next time. Let's go. You know where we should go? We should take a train trip down to Fukuoka, to the other side of Japan.
I'm so down. I got to travel a little bit, but there's still so much of Japan I haven't been able to see. So many different types of ice cream that I haven't tried yet.
All right, so how about this? Wai, next time you're gonna come, contact me. Let's plan a trip down to Fukuoka. We can go up to Ishikawa as well. We can see tons of cool old style Japanese houses, lots of great seafood in the area. We can find some interesting like shrines and temples to go to. It'll be fun, and lots of onsens there as well for you to enjoy as well.
Onsen? Definitely. Yes. Post onsen. Yeah. The post onsen.
The post onsen. We should that should be like the new project. You and John open up a hot spring, a public bathhouse in Toronto. for wrestling fans only.
That's next year's WrestleMania. We're not doing a Q&A next year. It'll be a communal hot spring.
Oh yeah, sounds awesome. You, John, Braden, Brandon, MJ, yes. Jesse.
Clothes completely optional, of course.
No, it's complete nude.
Yeah.
Anyways, with that being said, for Wai Ting, I'm Doug H. Park. To all the listeners, thanks for supporting Thunderstruck. Thanks for listening to the episode, and I'll see everyone on the next episode, which will be the last episode. And until then, I say goodbye.